Hey guys, Rocambasco here, and welcome back to another gaming challenge. Today, I have a question for you. You want to know what's really cool? Hamsters. But you want to know what's cooler than that? Sword hands, claw hands, muscle hands, hammer hands, gun hands, pointy hands, no hands, and really long hands. But seeing how Alex Mercer loves to throw things, like people, cars, and deadly viruses that turn people into humanoid pig dogs, I decided to beat Prototype only by throwing objects. And yes, I know that there's black bars at the sides of the screen, but there's no option for 1920 by 1080. Anyway, my journey begins with the intro, but the intro isn't really important except for the fact that it ends with me doing a Devastator attack, but I don't consider it a fail when control gets taken away from me, like in this case, or when I have to destroy inanimate objects, such as viral detectors or buildings. However, in the first hour of the game, I already had to consume 3 dudes, and this number rose higher and higher as the challenge went on, because consuming is one of the core mechanics to progress the game's story. So in short, this challenge is impossible, but for the purposes of this video, I allowed consuming, but only when absolutely necessary. Other than that, I never consumed anyone else, and FYI, consuming is also the main method of healing in this game, so it made the challenge pretty tough. Anyway, 18 days earlier, and we see that Alex was dead, but then he wasn't. The scientists were alive, but then they weren't. I escape, I destroy some helicopters, and then we could get into the first important mission of the challenge, the first fight with the hunters. I infiltrated the Gentech building, and I met a sexy woman of ginger descent, and judging from all that blood around her mouth, I could tell with absolute certainty that she had recently been giving menstruating Myrtle a rim job. Of course, just like sword hands, claw hands, and strong hands, lesbians are pretty cool. What's not cool is sexual relations with dead people. I asked her nicely to stop being a disgusting pig, but then she took offense to that, so she told her humanoid pig dogs to kill me. But before she left, I told her that if I ever caught her with rim job mouth again, I wouldn't hesitate to beat her, then eat her. She became an elevator, and then it was just the hunters and I. I had to bring them to a military base where I would have to fight off a bunch of them. And after looking into those sad eyes, I could tell that these weren't bloodthirsty beasts. No, they just needed some tender love and affection. But when they rejected my love and spat in my face, I decided that these were just bloodthirsty beasts. So after weakening the first hunter with people projectiles and big heavy objects, I had to consume the hunter. I got access to claw powers and god damn it dude, don't stand so close to psychopaths. And then I had to spend the next few minutes killing the hunters and destroying these fuel tanks, but the hunters don't give me a chance to breathe because they're fast as fuck and aggressive as shit, so I had to constantly be moving or else they would kill me very quickly. I used up most of the big objects on the hunters, and then I was running out of things to throw, but luckily, people make great ammunition. They don't inflict a lot of damage, but they're very accurate and they don't stop spawning. So it's all a matter of time until I destroy the base, and once I do, everything dies and I beat the mission. Next, I had to escort my girlfriend to a safe place in a tank. Or maybe she's my ex? It's hard to tell whether dying but then coming back to life makes the breakup final or not, but either way, Alex had to get her to a private place where he could use his powers. No, not those powers. His powers of seduction. I had to drive a tank in this mission, and in missions where I had to drive tanks, it was a minefield, because I could risk running over people or enemies. Although it's easy to avoid killing anyone because you can push or throw vehicles out of the way, and you can even push your tank without crushing anyone. It takes longer than trying to shit out the Taco Bell from yesterday night, but avoiding a fail is always worth it, even if the challenge is still impossible. Once I defeated all the enemies and destroyed the hive, everyone in the area dies, so I could drive carefree. There was also a moment where I had to test my tank's weapon systems, but I got around that by boarding an enemy tank and pushing all the necessary buttons. When I saved Karen, I just had to do the usual, dodge people and push the tank. Sometimes people would suicide on me, but hey, that's not my fault if they want to get crushed. And once I got her to the location, the mission ends, and now it's time for the first boss fight. And hey, if you're feeling adventurous, you should consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing. Anyway, I came to check out this hive that my girlfriend told me about because free real estate. This place was looking mathematical, but then my girlfriend's nerdy new boyfriend came here to discuss puss custody. That sounded boring, so instead I threw a pallet at him. The first stage of the boss fight is really simple. There's plenty of objects to throw, and thanks to my muscle hands, he was receiving a decent chunk of damage. But then he leaves the first phase in style. The second phase was harder because the infected weren't giving me a chance to throw objects, Cross was dodging my attacks, and he was inflicting insane amounts of damage to me. Eventually, I whittled his health down, and just before I died, we entered the last phase where he gets some backup. This was the hardest part, because even though his men were sources of health and ammunition, they had some heavy firepower, so I died about 3 times, but then I finally dealt the killing blow. And just when I thought I had won the fight against Cross, he farted a real nasty concoction of ooey pooey grossness. I had no defense against chemical warfare, so I succumbed to the shit, and then he stabbed me with an AIDS needle. So I ran away, and I beat the mission. There's also those missions with Ragland where he cures my AIDS and he helps me to find my sister who got abducted by a humanoid pig dog leader, but nothing special happens in these missions. I did another mission where I had to take a helicopter and escort Blackwatch troops around the city. In this mission, all I did was park the chopper in a safe place, and then I would help my comrades on ground level, but this was an easy mission to get through. At the end, we get introduced to super soldiers, and they're also very easy to take out. But one of the hardest missions in the game was escorting the blood tox machine. The escort part was very easy because I just had to take out some wormies with my comrades, but what really stumped me was defending it once it reached Times Square. The first part was really simple because there was a lot of objects laying around, and because of my upgrades, all the hunters died in one hit, but when it came to defend it against the hunter leaders and the worm dudes, it got significantly more tough. The only throwable objects in the area was the soldiers, but they did pitiful damage, so I had to leave the pump unprotected while I went looking for cars. The hunters damaged the pump extremely fast, and it was hard to grab the cars since hunters are cunts, so they would always end up breaking the pump. The best thing I could do was constantly attack them to keep their attention on me, and eventually I finished them off. The worm dudes were barely a threat, so I had plenty of time to finish them off too, but that was the easy part of the mission, because after that, I had to spend 45 minutes fighting the less sexy version of the ginger girl. There was a constant supply of cars to throw at her, but I had to deal with hunters who wouldn't give me a second to breathe, I had to dodge Elizabeth's attacks, and even with my fully upgraded throwing powers, it would rarely do more than 1 to 3 bars of damage when I threw stuff at her, and sometimes the objects I threw wouldn't even damage her. On top of that, she would sometimes break my objects in midair, and it seems like every time I got the chance to damage her, the hunters would sabotage me, or I would grab a person instead of a car. And with every fuck up I made, she obtained more health, so this fight dragged on forever, and I was just filled with so much joy because I simply adore wasting my precious time. And constantly messing up? Oh hell yeah, I'm all about that. When I finally defeated Elizabeth, I came face to face with her, and I witnessed rimjob mouth. It was pretty obvious that she had been seeing menstruating Myrtle again when I specifically told her not to, so there wasn't a moment of hesitation in what I did next. I'll see you in hell, you sick freak. And with that, the mission ends. There's a few more missions where I have to destroy some filters, some helicopters, and some tanks, but those are all self-explanatory. The tank mission was probably the longest mission in the game because I had to destroy the beefy tanks, so I would have to run away and heal, run away and find vehicles to throw at them, and I had to avoid getting suplexed by super soldiers. There was 12 tanks in total to destroy, but I got through it without too much trouble. I consumed the dude who has access to the battleship, and then we come to the last mission in the game. The military wants to nuke the city, and once again, Cross is back. But this time, I've grown an immunity to chemical attacks, so instead he becomes a Supreme Hunter. I didn't discuss the other Supreme Hunter fight, because killing these guys is too easy. I literally killed him in less than 4 minutes, and because we're on a military ship, there's a lot of missiles and large vehicles to throw at him. So when we hit that last minute mark, I hit him with some missiles and I dealt the finishing blow with a trolley. I saved the city by being a hero, the nuke blows up but I survive because I eat a crow, and I beat the game. So was I able to beat Prototype only by throwing objects? Hell no, I failed this challenge at least 20 times due to the amount of times I had to consume an enemy to progress with a mission. This challenge is completely impossible. Well, consider leaving a like, a comment, and subscribing, and I'll see you all in the next one.